Let's finish off the cap shading. I'll turn everything else off. Turn the cap on. We'll dive into the materials. We'll create a new RS material. And we'll call this metal base. So we're going to do kind of like a layered shader, just mixing between a metal base material and a gold material, and then using an RS noise to sort of mask out some of the gold to reveal the metal base. Okay, so my settings are as followed. I turn off the diffuse weight, turn the BRDF to GGX. I'll turn the IOR to metalness. Turn the metalness all the way up to 1. We'll turn the roughness up to about 2.47. And I think everything else can be left as is. I think that's fine. Let's apply that material. I think what we'll do is we'll also create another camera. I'll just copy and paste this camera. I can also drag into the viewport, and now I'm inside that render cam 1. We'll rename that to test. So we're inside test. I'll lock the camera. Let's move around. S on the keyboard. Select our geometry. Space G to frame up. I'm just going to view it from, I don't know, somewhere like there. I'll change the resolution to 1 by 1, 1000 by 1000. And I'll lock these parameters. Just like that. Okay, so let's apply our material. We'll jump out. Let's open the render view. Tick this to test. Just like that. And that's looking pretty cool already. What we can do is jump into the materials. I think we'll pull these to the side. Let's take our gold material that we created earlier, wherever that is. That's the cap. Okay. And we'll rename this to gold. We'll create a material blender. So that means we can just input both of our RS materials and blend between them. So the base material is obviously the metal base. The layer 1 is our gold layer, which sits on top, just like that. I'm just going to check our gold settings. Just going to turn the render off a second. So I ended up going with 0.513 for the roughness, sorry. Let's turn the samples to 16. We don't need that many samples. My reflectivity was set at 0.457 by 0.432, 0.366. So it's still like a goldy type material, just a little bit darker. And the metal edge tint I set to 111. Just like that. And all the rest, I think we're left as is. Yeah. So let's just test our gold material out. Let's drop that on top. Open up the render view. We can take a snapshot of what we've already got. So that gives us a slightly rougher looking material there. And what we need to do now is create a noise mask so we can reveal some of the metal base through the gold. So I'll create an RS noise. And I like to test, the way I like to test my noises out is by plugging them into a Redshift material. And this shouldn't be mistaken with an RS material. So there's a difference between an RS material and a Redshift material. Just so you guys can understand, if you're coming from a Maya background, I'll click on the Hypershade. I'll just graph a Phong. And this is the equivalent. So this initial shading group here, where you plug your displacement, volume, and surface shader in. This is the same as this. So a cool way to test this RS noise is by just plugging this into the surface and then dropping this Redshift material on. So open up the Redshift render view once again. Currently our noise is way too large, so everything's just looking white. So I'll set the noise to something like, the complexity something like 60. Amplitude gain to 1.016, just like that, which is giving us a hell of a lot more detail already. The frequency I set to 1.252. And just feel free to have a play around with these settings, you know, slide up and down and see what types of effects you get. My distortion was set to 0.55. Distortion scale was set to 8.05. And this is just usually me sitting down for a good 5-10 minutes just sliding around with this and having to play around. Under the coordinates I set this to 0.648. And I offset it ever so slightly to 0.8. And that's pretty much it. What I did after this is I remapped these values just a little bit. So if I drop down an RS change range, I set the new range minimum value to 0.02. So that just lifted up those blacks a little bit. So if you look at the blacks and we go back to what we had, slightly blacker, introduces a little bit more whites into the blacks. And my input, my new range max set to 2. So we're pushing those whites up as well. What we can do then is we can sort of disregard this, and I can plug, if we use Y for snip, and we can plug this into the blend color. So now if we drag the material blender onto our cap, we get this type look, which is pretty cool. Let's switch render cam so we can see what's going on. I'll pause the render. Let's go back out. I'll turn everything else back on, I think, so we can see what we currently have. Just increase the size of the window. Make sure we've got the render cam selected and start the render. So we got this. I can shift, left click and drag, and that'll do a region render. We can turn on bucket rendering so we can see what's happening. I think that looks pretty cool. I'm going to save my scene.